Truman Capote was born Truman Streckfus Persons on September 30, 1924 in New Orleans, Louisiana to a teenage mother, Lily Mae Falk, and a disappeared father, Archulus Persons. He spent his early childhood living with family members in Monroeville, Alabama. Childhood and adolescence. Capote had a difficult and troubled childhood. His mother left him in the care of relatives when he was 4. Capote was close to his mother's younger brother, Joe Capote, who nicknamed him Bulldog for his tenacious personality. Capote began writing stories as a child and first published one at age 11 in the children's section of the local paper. In 1933, Capote moved to New York City to live with his mother and her new husband, Joseph Garcia Capote, a Cuban businessman. Capote changed his last name to his stepfather's surname. Though aloof, his stepfather provided financial stability. However, Capote struggled to adjust to the crowded city after living in the South. Capote attended private school and became enamored with writing, reading works from acclaimed authors like F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway. After graduating high school early in 1941, Capote worked odd jobs and frequented jazz clubs and literary parties to establish himself in New York's creative community. Early success and the New Yorker debut. In 1942, Capote had his first short story published in the prestigious New Yorker magazine under the guidance of its fiction editor William Maxwell. The story marked the beginning of Capote's 4-decade-long association with the magazine, publishing nearly 50 short stories and reportages. Capote completed his first novel, Other Voices, Other Rooms, in 1945. Though initially rejected, it was published in 1948 and brought Capote early acclaim at age 24. The semi-autobiographical novel details a young boy's coming of age in the 1930s South. Other Voices is now considered one of the first novels to explore Southern Gothic themes. In cold blood and literary fame. In 1959, Capote learned of the brutal murders of a Kansas farming family and decided to write an extensive reportage of the crime and investigation. He interviewed witnesses, law enforcement, and the convicted killers over 5 years. In Cold Blood was finally published in 1966 and became an instant bestseller. The book solidified Capote's place in American letters and pioneered the nonfiction novel genre, popularizing narrative journalism. The book earned wide critical acclaim and catapulted Capote to international fame at age 42. However, the notoriety that followed took a heavy personal toll on Capote. Later life and decline. In the ensuing years, Capote led a lavish lifestyle centered around cocktail parties, celebrity events, and extensive travel. His heavy drinking and use of prescription drugs increased. Capote struggled to produce another successful work, suffering from writer's block and bouts of depression. Capote's short novel, Music for Chameleons, was poorly received in 1980. His unfinished final work, Answered Prayers, caused controversy due to its thinly veiled satire of café society and prominent socialites. In his later years, Capote grew markedly overweight due to excessive drinking. He developed health problems including phlebitis and grew dependent on barbiturates and amphetamines. Death and legacy. Capote died of liver disease complications, respiratory infection and drug intoxication on August 25, 1984 at age 59 in Bel Air, Los Angeles. He was initially interred in Los Angeles but his remains were moved to Newport Cemetery in his beloved Monroeville, Alabama in 1988. In Cold Blood remains Capote's masterpiece and cemented his literary legacy. Though he published few notable works after his literary stardom, Capote left an indelible mark by pioneering the nonfiction novel as a genre and crafting intimate literary journalism. Capote's candid and confessional prose style influenced countless writers that followed. His brilliant yet tumultuous life has become the stuff of legend, a cautionary tale of literary genius and excess. Here are some additional interesting facts and details about Truman Capote. Capote had a close friendship with Harper Lee, the author of To Kill a Mockingbird. They met as students at a writer's workshop and remained friends for decades. Lee even accompanied Capote on some of his research trips for In Cold Blood. Capote had a distinctive high-pitched voice and peculiar mannerisms that made him a memorable and eccentric public figure. He was often the life of the party at social events and gatherings. Capote claimed to have had romantic relationships with both men and women throughout his life. He was linked romantically to several prominent socialites and celebrities, though he never married. Capote was just 5 feet tall as an adult, which led to his nickname Little Man. Despite his diminutive stature, Capote cultivated an image of sophistication through his fashionable dress and witty demeanor. Capote was a skilled conversationalist and avid listener, traits that served him well when conducting research and interviews for his writing. He was known for drawing intimate details and stories from those he spoke with. Capote endured periods of depression throughout his life, often triggered by feelings of isolation and lack of motivation to write. He struggled to wean himself off of prescription drugs and alcohol later in life. Many of Capote's characters and stories were autobiographical or drawn from his own life experiences. His unconventional and sometimes troubled upbringing fed into his writing from an early age. Here are some of Truman Capote's most famous works. Other Voices, Other Rooms, Capote's first novel, published in 1948. The semi-autobiographical story follows a young boy's mysterious encounter with his eccentric aunts and uncle in 1930s Alabama. The novel helped establish Capote as an important new voice in American literature. Breakfast at Tiffany's, this novella, published in 1958, tells the story of Holly Golightly, a young society girl living in New York City. The book features Capote's trademark charming yet acid wit and observations of high society. It was adapted into the iconic 1961 film starring Audrey Hepburn. In Cold Blood, Capote's influential nonfiction novel, published in 1966. The detailed account of the 1959 murders of a Kansas farming family made Capote famous and established the genre of literary journalism. The book took Capote 6 years to research and write. Miriam, considered Capote's finest short story. Published in 1944, the story follows a young girl in an oppressive summer in Alabama. It reveals Capote's ability to vividly capture setting and emotion through subtle details and observations. A Christmas Memory, one of Capote's most beloved short stories. First published in Mademoiselle magazine in 1956, the nostalgic and poignant story recounts a young Capote's Christmas traditions with his elderly cousin in rural Alabama during the Great Depression. Music for Chameleons, Capote's final novel published in 1980. The poorly received work contains several intertwined short stories thematically linked by feelings of isolation and disconnectedness. Critics felt the book lacked the brilliance of Capote's earlier work. Those represent some of Capote's most iconic and critically acclaimed works, from early short stories and novels to his crowning achievement in Cold Blood. Though he struggled later in life, Capote left behind a legacy of luminous prose, penetrating insight, and indelible characters that continue to influence modern storytelling. What inspired Capote to write A Christmas Memory? A Christmas Memory was inspired by Capote's real-life memories of spending Christmas with his elderly cousin, Sur, during his childhood in Alabama. The story closely parallels Capote's actual experiences, blending autobiographical details with fiction. Capote's cousin, named Sook Falk in real life, served as a maternal figure for him during his difficult childhood. Sook, who never married and had no children of her own, took pleasure in doting on young Truman. Their special Christmas traditions, involving making fruitcakes and decorating a small tree, brought Capote joy during what was otherwise an impoverished and lonely upbringing. The character of Buddy in the story, a sensitive yet precocious boy, represents Capote at age 7 when the depicted events would have happened. Similar to Capote's own childhood, Buddy's parents and immediate family are notably absent from the story. Sook/Sur fills the void as a loving and whimsical companion. In writing the short story decades later, Capote channeled his powerful memories of Christmases past with his beloved cousin. The nostalgic piece captures the bittersweet feeling of recapturing innocent childhood wonder through the lens of experience and memory. At its heart, the story celebrates the simple joys and abiding comfort of human companionship, especially between those of different generations. Ultimately, A Christmas Memory arose from Capote's longing to recapture and preserve the magic of a joyful holiday spent with his loyal cousin Sook during his lonely Alabama youth. The story's mix of fact and fiction allowed Capote to transform those meaningful childhood memories into a timeless literary work that resonates with universality.